local reasons.
Thank you. My name is Haseeb and I'm a PhD scholar at Aligarh Muslim University. My PhD is about the political developments in Jammu and Kashmir from 1947 to 1975, and this is one of the chapters that I have written therein. So it is a 40-page chapter, and I shall be briefly putting few of the facts here. So every day we see that the dance of death there in the valley of Kashmir. We see people being killed. We see people being man tortured, death everywhere. People being what we see tortured. Why all this? Why have been people killed? What the reason for this? So today we shall be discussing this. What led to all this crisis? Who is responsible for this? How all this mess came into creation? So actually there is a saying, Tarun Vijay is an RSS ideologue and the former editor of Times of India. He writes that people who remember their past have a future. And there is an author in Kashmir who has written a book entitled Paradise on Fire. The initial page of that book says that under the leadership of Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, the Kashmiris have proved beyond fact that Kashmiris remember their past. So basic thing that we first shall be discussing is how old this Kashmir dispute is, how this came into being. So there are many views, many theories. People have different views about this. Is this conflict 26-year-old, starting from 1989, when Maqbool Alai of Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front detonated the residence of then DIG of Srinagar Ali Mahmood Watali's residence, and thereby the holding of guns, the tossing of grenades became the passion of the Kashmiri youth? Or is it just near about 71-year-old that the problem of Kashmir came into being in 1947 on October 27 when the Indian forces landed into this land, the valley of Kashmir? Or it is just prior to this that this conflict came into being in just 471 years ago on 14th of October 1586 when the Mughal forces, when Akbar was the emperor of India, the Mughal forces landed in Kashmir. The basic thing is that we people have to differentiate between what independence is, what freedom is. So it was more, according to most of the theorists, it is the people of Kashmir lost their independence, their freedom in 1947 when the Indian forces landed into Kashmir. So how all this happened? What led to all this? So putting briefly the facts that in 1846, a treaty was signed between the Maharaja of Punjab and the British government of India. That was called a Treaty of Amritsar. According to that Treaty of Amritsar, Kashmir was sold to the Maharaja Gulab Singh. Every human, the land, the cattle, everyone was sold for 75 lakh rupees. This was the world's only treaty where humans were sold for 75 lakh rupees. And then this communally antagonistic Dogra rule, the Hindu rule, started in the valley of Kashmir. And for the first time, the politically, what you can say, contiguous unit, a single political entity came into being. What we see in today, the Jammu, the Kashmir, the Ladakh, and the Pakistani administered Kashmir, the Muzaffarabad, the Gilgit, Baltistan, and the northern areas. For the first time, it came into being in 1846. From that time, this communally antagonistic ruler started ruling the valley of Kashmir, and this rule was very, what we can say, despotic. There's this famous school in Kashmir Valley called Bisco School. The founder of that school, in his autobiography, puts a very important fact that he had a servant named Muhammad. Once upon a time, his servant told him an important thing that can help us to understand what kind of rule these Dogras played there in the valley of Kashmir. That this servant's father was sold by an army officer of Dogras to a Gilgit ruler in turn of a dog. The Kashmiri man was sold for a dog. This is the kind of rule that we had there. So in 1930s, there started a movement. The movement was led by one of the most notorious guy. You can be famous, who is notorious, he is lovable, he is everyone. His name is Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, the founder of the founder president of National Conference, the grandfather of current Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Umar Abdullah, he started the freedom struggle of Jammu and Kashmir in 1931 with the formation of the All Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference. This Muslim Conference was transformed into All Jammu and Kashmir National Conference in 1939 under the influence of Jawaharlal Nehru. Prior to this, there used to be a All Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference because it was the only Muslims of the state, only the Muslims of the state who used to suffer under this rule. So, in 1939, with the transformation of Muslim Conference to the National Conference, the movement spread to very wide, and thereupon we see, with briefly putting the facts, in 1947 we see with the Indian Independence Act, the paramountcy ended, and all those 562, more or less 562 princely states were asked to join either of the dominant India or Pakistan. So on 15th of August, most of these princely states had decided their fate. Some moved to India and some moved to Pakistan. And there remained only three. The first was Junagadh, the second was Hyderabad, and third was Kashmir. The ruler of Hyderabad was a Muslim, of Junagadh was a Muslim, of Kashmir was a Hindu. But in Hyderabad, where the ruler was a Muslim, the dominant population was a Hindu. So according to the partition plan, the state was destined to move to India because of its, what we can say, demographic issue. The majority was Hindus. It was decided to move into India. So has been the case with the Junagadh. Junagadh has a Muslim ruler, but the majority of the population was Hindu. But this was not the case with Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir, according to 1947 census, we have near about, the population of Jammu and Kashmir was 77% Muslims. The Valley of Kashmir, the Muzaffarabad area, the Gilgit, the Baltistan, all these areas are Muslim majority areas. But what happened at that time was Nehru, Gandhi, all these people use figures, you can see portraits here hanging. I just plead the case against them, and it would be up to you to decide their let you people act as their judges who they were and how they played the game. All these people who are dying right now in the Valley of Kashmir, who is responsible for their death. So it was a long process how they transformed Sheikh Muhammad into his own men. An accession was moved into Kashmir, thus Kashmir became the part of this territory. The issue is simple. Maharaja had no right to make an accession of Jammu and Kashmir state with the Union of India because the majority of the population was this Muslim. So the moot point of all this paper is that, what I would like to put briefly, because there is a paucity of time. So the issue is that, yeah, definitely I will. I'm sorry, actually. The reason are self-evident. Firstly, the Indian government isn't, why right now there is a problem, we need to understand this. The reasons are self-evident. Firstly, the Indian government is in the physical possession of Valley, which is the main area of contention. It has therefore not felt the imperative to engage in dialogue beyond that. It has so far unsuccessfully pursued with the dissatisfied Kashmiris in the Valley. Secondly, despite their desire to improve all these things, right now the basic problem in the Kashmir is that besides the intervention of United Nations organization, nothing has happened because India is stubborn in its approach. India does not allow. The very interesting thing about Kashmir is what Sir Owen Dixon made a point about Kashmir, that the Kashmir issue can never be solved because of the stubbornness of the government of India's attitude. So it was left to one of India's foremost public intellectuals, Ashok Mitra, former finance minister of West Bengal, to rip apart the wheel of falsehood and expose the havoc that India's policies have wreaked there in Kashmir. He writes that behind the facade of constitutional apparatus rests the nitty-gritty of rude fact. The valley is an occupied territory. Remove for a day India's army and security forces, and it's impossible to gauge what might transpire in the next moment. Some of the stone pelters may nurse illusions about Pakistan, and some may think in terms of the sovereign self-governing Kashmir, but they certainly do not want to be the part of India, the great Indian nation with its load of civilization stretching 5,000 years is extraordinarily mum. The bottom line is that India does not trust Kashmiris and Kashmiris do not trust India. The situation deteriorated steeply since the outbreak of militancy in 1989, but its roots lay in the clash of Kashmir and Indian nationalism in 1947. In a real sense, there is no alienation of the people from the Union. Alienation implies previous affection, which the people of Kashmir never had for India, not even at the time of accession. Both Abdullah and Nehru knew this. Thank you.
Okay. We have 10 minutes for question and answer. A question about the Kashmir issue. And rewriting of the history is very much popular issue. Saffronization is going on there.